2022 has almost come to its end. By the time this video is up, it probably will be 2023. So it's that time of year to start talking about the best and the worst movies of 2022. This is going to be my list of the best movies of 2022. Now, just keep in mind, I haven't seen everything in 2022, and this is just my list. This is my opinion. Feel free to disagree as long as it's constructive criticism. Don't be fighting me in the comments and all that shit, you know. Don't be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Nope, not going to tolerate that. This was a great year for movies. There's so many great movies. It felt like movies came back this year. It's like if 2021 made a statement, 2022 also made a statement that said we can have so many great movies in theaters this year. And I have narrowed this down to 15, just like last year. This is a list of 15 movies, and I had quite a few honorable mentions, so that just tells you how good of a year it was. There are a lot of honorable mentions on this list, starting with The Black Phone, Avatar, The Way of Water, The Woman King, Violent Night, All Quiet on the Western Front, Weird, The Al Yankovic Story, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Barbarian, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Breaking, Pearl, Kimmy, Fresh, Scream 5, and The Cursed. Those were movies that I borderline loved or really liked, but didn't quite love. But these next 15 are movies that I really loved. Coming in at number 15. I knew I had to put an animated movie on here, and I thought Turning Red was the prime example of an animated movie, especially from Disney and Pixar this year. It was something different that Pixar had never done. It really touches on adolescence and growing up and a lot of emotions that we go through as we hit puberty. And even though the protagonist was a girl, I still found the movie to be very relatable. It's very funny, and it's really, really, really well animated. It just shows you how far Pixar animation has come in the recent years. Number 14 is Prey. Man, we haven't had a good Predator movie since the original Predator. That's changed. Prey came out on Hulu. I love the kills in this movie. I love the characters in this movie. I love the setting in this movie. You could tell that Prey was made by somebody who loved the original Predator movie and took the time to actually flesh out its characters and its world and create several Easter eggs that were subtle in the movie but not overbearing or in your face. Prey was one of the biggest surprises of the year. I wish it went into theaters. I wish it didn't get dumped on Hulu. It's the best Predator movie since Predator. At number 13, we have the slasher movie X. This was a really, really cool movie. It's a very different take. I love the 70s aesthetic of the movie. Jenna Ortega is our scream queen for this generation. That's all I'm going to say. The kills I loved in this movie. I just love the theme of touching on ageism in this movie. It's one of the more fun slasher movies of the year, and it's some of the most fun I've had at a movie this year. At number 12, we have The Fallout. The thing I loved about The Fallout is that you don't see the actual act of violence on screen. That's what makes it so terrifying. And then the movie touches upon the consequences and the aftermath of such events, in this case a school shooting, and how two can come together to really bond who weren't really friends before. It's such a touching and great coming-of-age story, and it deals with a lot of emotional trauma that I didn't think that the movie would do a great job of touching on, and it did. Jenna Ortega is so good in this movie, so is Maddie Ziegler. I wish I could put it higher, but there are just 11 movies that I liked more. Adam Sandler needs to keep making dramas because Hustle is really good. I'm all down for a sports biopic or sports drama, and Adam Sandler just continues to kill it in movies where he's not in a comedy, where he's actually acting, and you can see his range and his versatility. That's where he's at his best, and I felt like that's where he was at his best with Hustle, and I loved all the sports action in this movie. I just loved the inside elements of scouting and trying to prove to people that you found the next best thing in your sport. And that's what Adam Sandler's character in this movie really does. It's got great characters. I'm just there for a sports movie, whether it's an Adam Sandler sports movie or sports drama, whatever it may be. As long as it's this good, I'm down. And number 10, we have Emergency. Emergency is a comedy that is really disguised as a drama, but I think it balances those two tones and those two genres very well. It actually touches a lot on police brutality and racial profiling. For the first half of the movie, I didn't think it was actually going to. The whole thing that sets this whole thing off is that there's this situation in this movie, and it actually addresses what happens in a situation like this, like just quick thinking and what if you do make the worst decision possible? And that's what happens, but it also addresses the consequences of a bad decision. So yes, the characters make bad decisions, but the movie addresses that. And that's what I appreciated about a movie like this, because usually movies don't really address bad decisions. It just kind of rolls with the bad decisions and it's like, just roll with it. And this one's like, no. There's people in the situation that have to think quickly. They think that this is the best situation when it's actually a terrible decision. And here's why it's a terrible decision, but here's also why they chose to do that. At number 9, we have another animated movie called The Sea Beast. I came to this late. I reviewed it, I believe. This was really well animated, a really touching story. Surprisingly, a couple Netflix movies made this list. You would think it would make my bottom, but the animation is so smooth. I loved all the action in this movie. It felt like an animated Godzilla movie. Like, it felt like monsters throwing down with monsters, but the message behind it is really good, and I just loved all that action that this movie brought, especially from an animation standpoint. That must have been really hard to do. At number 8, we have Tar. Tar was up higher on my list, and I switched it last second with another movie. Tar, it's a slow burn, for sure, but it features an unlikable character that is such a great character. That's what's sticking with me most about Tar. And I just love the world that this movie is in. Somebody who thinks that they're full of themselves, this musical world and trying to build orchestras and all that. Even though it was a slow burn and it did feel like it was its runtime, I actually really enjoyed it for what it was. All right, number 7, we have a movie that I saw in theaters that is out now on Netflix as well, and that is Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. Does a lot of the same things that Knives Out does, but puts a lot of fresh spins on them. I love Benoit Blanc as a detective. I'm glad Daniel Craig has a career after James Bond. The direction that this movie takes is predictable, but still unexpected. That's what I love about Knives Out, and that's what I love about Glass Onion. You take your time to get to know the characters, and to build up the relationships between these characters. And the actual mystery itself is interesting, and it makes complete sense. I just love the way that this movie ends as well. It's so good. Rian Johnson with another win. The man is a masterclass. He hasn't made a bad movie yet. At number 6, we have a comic book movie, and that is the only MCU movie on this list this year, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever does a great job of giving a tribute to its fallen lead in Chadwick Boseman, while also building for the future and honoring his legacy. It's such a great story with improved visual effects from the first one. Namor is one of the MCU's best villains. I'll just hands out say it right there. There's action scenes in this movie that really stuck out to me this year in terms of MCU action scenes. It's the most put together MCU movie, even if there are elements that could have been taken out. It's the one that I felt the most invested in. It's not very action heavy. It takes its time to tell its story. It's very invested in the emotional state of these characters and character building with other new characters that we haven't seen yet, and characters that we have seen in the MCU that are being brought into the story. And the movie balances all of that while honoring Chadwick Boseman's legacy. That's the best I could ask for. It's a tough task, and I think the movie pulled it off to the best of its ability. Number 5 is another comic book movie, and that is The Batman. The Batman is a 3-hour crime epic that I loved. It never felt boring to me, despite its gargantuan runtime. There's constantly something happening in this movie. I love Robert Pattinson as Batman. The aesthetic of this movie, the musical score, that theme is just so so cool. It's so Batman-y. The reliance on Batman being a detective instead of the over-reliance on action sequences in this movie, I think were a fresh change of pace for a Batman movie. I love Batman's relationship with Jim Gordon in this movie, and just how Gotham City looks in this movie. It feels very gothic. I feel like the Batman is what I want from a comic book movie. Just a comic book leapt off the pages of the comic book and onto the big screen. The inspiration was there from a couple of animated movies that I've seen, and which were based on graphic novels. So I think that's why this movie really stuck with me this year, is because I'm familiar with those and that slow pace of those movies. But The Batman definitely is the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight Rises. Number 4, we have The Fabelmans, Spielberg's latest masterpiece that really spoke to me because even though it's Spielberg essentially making a biopic about himself, he's not directing himself. So therefore, it doesn't feel as self-indulgent as some may say it is. And it's about a kid who loves the art of filmmaking. So here we are. I am here talking about movies. This movie is perfect for me because it's about movies. It's about somebody who loves to make movies. It's about somebody who really wants to be a filmmaker, but he goes through all these struggles growing up with his parents and struggles in school being of a different religion. So it's very hard for him to grow up. And Spielberg is my favorite director of all time. Like, he knows how to craft a movie. He knows how to make a movie. He's so good at doing all of that. He knows how to speak to an audience. When he has a subject he wants to talk about, he brings it up in his movies and he makes sure that that is the point of the movie. And this is, look, cinema is great. It's not dead. It's not dead. You can be a filmmaker. You just have to see what inspires you. And I love seeing what inspired young Sammy Fabelman in this movie. And it really showed me that if I ever wanted a passion in filmmaking, I can try and achieve that. So thank you to the Fabelmans. This movie was perfect for me. Number 3, you guys were waiting for it. I know you were. Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick is what a legacy sequel should be. It was so good. It's so much better than the first one. It actually does a deep dive into the characters. The action sequences are amazing. I loved all those flight sequences that were filmed in real time and not in simulators. They were actually behind the cockpits of these fighter planes, and the different relationships in this movie between the different characters and how they grow to respect each other is exactly what I wanted a sequel to Top Gun to be. Bringing Val Kilmer into the mix, I thought that they did a very respectful job of bringing him in and making him make sure he was a part of the movie. And Top Gun Maverick was just, it just blew me away. The moment I saw it, I walked out of that theater just being like, I can't believe that was that good. How is a sequel to Top Gun that good 30 years later? Because I have to admit, the first Top Gun is just kind of an okay movie, but now, I mean, if they want to make Top Gun Rooster or something, which I think they are, please do. I'm down to see a sequel to Top Gun. I just love how high the stakes are, and I just love the emotional weight of this movie, especially towards the end. All right, guys, we are down to the final 2. These are the only 2 movies I gave perfect scores to this year. At number 2, we have Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is like seeing the inside of your own head. The characters in this movie are awesome, and I love the blending of genres in this movie. It's a comedy, it's tragic, it's got a lot of emotional weight, but yet it's also an action movie, and it's so much fun. This is some of the most fun I've had at the movies all year. Watching this movie, there's so many weird, little quirky things in this movie that work, and I loved every single one of those. Michelle Yeoh kicks ass. She better get a nomination for Best Actress. Ke Huy Quan, who played Short Round in Temple of Doom, makes his grand return in here. I loved it. The aspect ratio is changing once the action sequences kicked in. There's just so much world building here and so much to say in a movie like this that was so surprising to me. I really did not expect a movie like this that was so quirky and over the top, but yet so effective and so well written to have such a strong message like this, and it worked so well. All right, guys, you ready? for my number one movie, this is going to be a hot take. I know that for sure. I know people are going to come at me and be like, well, how is that possible? That movie wasn't that good. My list, my rules. My number one movie is... When I think of the movies that actually stuck with me, that stayed with me the most, it was probably Everything Everywhere All at Once, but not one of them did it more than The Northman. The Northman made me a Robert Eggers fan. I take back everything bad I ever said about The Lighthouse and The Witch. This was a Viking epic for the ages. I loved all the Norse mythology in this movie. I loved the revenge tale that this movie presents. I loved the brutal, bloody violence that this movie had in it. The action was well helmed. The drama is well helmed. I love the aesthetic of this movie. The cinematography is just so great with this movie. It's the movie that I've gone back to the most this year, surprisingly, and I didn't think that would be the case. The Northman really showed me what Robert Eggers is capable of if he's given a bigger budget. Sadly, it bombed at the box office, but it's the one that I really loved, and I could watch any day of the week. This came out in, April, and I thought about it a lot since April. It's, like I said, it's the one that I've thought about the most. It's easily the most put-together movie, I would say, of the year. The most straightforward movie, the one where you don't have to worry about overthinking everything, and it delivers all the action you want. The village raid scene is amazing, but all the drama you want too, and it just blends both so well. Alright guys, so that is my list of the best movies of 2022. Stay tuned very soon for my worst of the year list. I'm doing one, I don't care what anybody says. It's coming. So what were your guys' favorite movies of 2022? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.